All right, hello and welcome to the eModule presentation for Robbie Park. I am the program coordinator, volunteer program coordinator for Signum University for our adult education program, and I'm just going to jump right on in. The first thing I wanted to do is just go briefly over the history of Signum University, which is a state-certified, fully accredited online university, and we are expanding into adult education, and right now we are focused on targeting homeless veterans, part of an at-risk population, and just any of the crises that they face, but especially with obtaining employment. And so that's something we're going to talk about today, is how we want to assist veterans in getting off the street, but also getting back into a sustainable job using an online platform, because we are, of course, an online university. So the first thing we need to do is talk about some of the issues that these veterans face. So there's sort of four problems that really we need to solve. So the first one is social reintegration, which is something that homeless people in general struggle with, but homeless veterans really struggle with it sort of on another level. Because on the one hand, you have veterans returning from service abroad who struggle to integrate with civilian culture, but then also you have the struggle once they become homeless, as they often tend to be viewed as invisible and sort of non-existent. This is also heavily tied to problem number 4, which is dignity and self-worth. A lot of times homeless veterans tend to feel like they don't matter. They struggle to find any sense of meaning, which is really difficult because they have made so many incredible sacrifices for our country. And this feeling of worthlessness can and does lead to depression and suicide. So we really want to also address the matter of dignity and self-worth. The other two problems that are very much related are numbers 2 and 3. So number 2 is employment. There's a large amount of social stigma related to hiring homeless persons, and it can also prevent them certainly from obtaining a job. And additionally, homeless veterans tend to feel that they don't have any applicable skills that will help them in the civilian market when they return. So this is another thing that we need to overcome. And in addition to employment, there's also the matter of what the state of employment is today, which leads us to problem number 3, which is digital fluency. Most positions nowadays require you to apply for the job online. Well, if you've had little to no contact with the internet or with a computer in the past, let's say even 5 years, this creates an enormous barrier. So this is something else that we really need to overcome, and we'll talk more about digital fluency here in just a second. So knowing that we have these 4 problems, we have an objective, and our objective is to provide essential services to homeless veterans to ensure social reintegration with focus on digital fluency skills to secure stable employment. So then the question becomes, how do we do that? And so to that, we offer a solution, which is that we will provide e-modules that address social reintegration, e-portfolios, and digital fluency. And these modules will rotate in a sort of a rotating schedule throughout the month in 4-hour blocks. So they're basically like workshops, and we'll talk more about that format here in just a moment. So let's take a look at the model and also the concept that is behind this program. So of course, first of all, we have the matter of digital fluency. So if we want to assist veterans in getting employment, they have to become digitally fluent. Most positions don't require only Microsoft Office anymore. To use the example of Park University, Park tends to use Canvas, they use Zoom, they don't just use Microsoft Office, they have a number of programs that they use. Signum uses Google Classroom, but we also use a number of other free online resources to assist these students. So firstly, we would be looking at audio and video recording. So students can watch videos, but also record themselves for interview skill building. And for that, we use GoToMeeting, Screencast-O-Matic, and Flipgrid. The second is composition media, which we use Google Docs, but also Blogger. And the goal for this is we want students to achieve a high level of writing mastery using numerous tools. And one part of this also is that we want them to use a blog to document their personal journey, because we feel that would add to their sense of self-worth if they were to use a blog and sort of be able to express themselves. And lastly, we have an employment e-profile. And for that, we have an e-portfolio that they will keep and they will add to as they progress through the modules, in addition also to a LinkedIn profile. So we'll talk here in just a second about that content for the e-portfolio. So first of all, in terms of the content that we're also looking at in the modules, the first thing we want to talk about is content with confidence. We want our students to feel confident, like they matter, that they're developing a sense of dignity in this new life phase, because this is a very new phase for them. So the content will be designed with that in mind. Secondly, we also have the modules, which again, I'll get to in just a moment, which will be scaffolded. So we have sort of easier modules that just require them to learn the very, very basics at the beginning, and then by the end, they've fully designed their e-portfolio and are ready for the job market. And lastly, we do want the content to be relevant. We want them to be able to use these pieces, whatever they are. So like, for example, a resume or a CV, a cover letter, references, all of those things will be relevant to them and will matter to them. So they will feel hopefully more motivated to complete those things. So just to give an example of what this scaffolded learning would look like, and also some of the content. So in module 1 over here on the left, you have an introduction or a foundational module and workshop. We would also have an assessment test to see exactly how fluent they are digitally. And then over at the in the middle, for example, let's say they did test into a higher module, that would be proficiency. So this means that they are much further along. Perhaps they've only been homeless for a year or so that maybe they do recall some close, interaction with computers and things like that. And then lastly, we would have a mastery workshop, and this is where they would have the fully fleshed out version of their e-portfolio, a LinkedIn profile, and could become a technology mentor to any of those enrollees who are still starting out way back at module 1. So we'll go through the logistics here. So the first thing is how do we provide for this program? And we need to talk about budgeting. And there's two key aspects here. The first one is community partnerships, and this is where we plan to reach out to corporations, businesses, and churches, any other area collaborators that would provide donations in kind, as well as potentially monetary assistance. And what I mean when I say in kind is, for example, here in Kansas City, we have Sprint. Sprint might be willing to reach out to donate phones, laptops, even a stable internet connection, so like a Wi-Fi hotspot, but they may not be willing to donate money, which is, of course, totally fine. And so in terms of financial assistance, we are also looking at the federal and state level there on the right. So about $4.9 billion is distributed on average for grant money for veteran assistance from the VA each year. But they also do provide funding for new startup programs, and state budgeting also accords for numerous grant opportunities. And in the state of Missouri, that is the adult education and literacy program. So we'd also be reaching out to them. And just to give a little more information on community partnerships, so again, it doesn't necessarily just have to be physical things like laptops and cell phones, but also, for example, a church or community center could provide classroom space. And then lastly, we do want to make that community connection because we want our community partners to feel like they can reach out to us and say, hey, we would like to hire your graduates. We've provided this assistance for you, but would you be willing to hopefully allow them to be interviewed, or even just allow them a few spaces to come in and interview and prep them for that. So this provides a huge resource for us. And then just quickly to go through the assessment program. So what we would consider to be success. So in a lot of homeless shelters, they view it as a 30-day minimum. I think that we'd be better to put this at a 45-day minimum. So we're talking about a month and a half. We want veterans to be able to move through this program and hopefully maintain stable housing and employment for at least 45 days before they exit that program. And we also want to make sure so they are obtaining a stable job, that they are receiving their pay stubs for that 6 weeks or so that they're in the program, and that they are financially secure before they move on. And lastly, to help them, even though they may have moved out of the program, is a mentorship program. These are students who can come back and volunteer and help. And this also creates a new social connection for them. They can feel more connected to people who have been through the same struggles that they have. And we really hope that this would help secure them once they have moved out of the program. And just to give a little information about myself, so I am the program coordinator for this. My name is Robbie Park, as I said. I am a volunteer, and if you have any questions, of course, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and contact me at roberta.park@signumu.org. And if you have any questions, comments, or issues, please do reach out, and thank you very much for your time.